So, the Vortex book study today is all about parenting, which is really fun because it's a subject near and dear to my heart. And it's about parenting, but it's also about the effect that our parents have had on us and how that is influencing us in being who we are and what we can do about it if we don't like it. All right, let us begin. Hi Lakshmi, hi Jennifer, Andrew, good to see you. We are starting our book study today on page 62. And the heading on the page is, Are Some Doomed by Their Childhood Influences? And I think it's interesting because a lot of us say, well, that's how I learned to do when I was a child, or this is what I was taught to behave like, and so my parents are to blame for my current circumstances. Some people think about it that way. Not everyone does, but some people do. It just depends because there are so many different experiences. And one of the most wonderful thing about being a child is that you have a very short memory. You tend to forget easily things that you don't like. Children tend to forget easily what they don't like, right? You can be harsh with a child and 10 minutes later, hi Mercedes, the child will come and hug you because they've forgotten the fact that you were harsh with them. They don't hang on to things. They forget. Take a toy away from a child and the child will forget about it after 10 minutes. They'll go and start doing something else. They'll distract themselves, right? So children are very forgiving, but they're also very demanding. You know why they are demanding? Because they haven't yet learned that they cannot have, be, or do anything they want. They totally believe, I can have, be, or do anything I want. So I want that, give it to me. And a lot of times parents will say, no, that's not happening. But it's not what you say, it's how you say it that makes a difference. You can say the same thing with the utmost love, and you can say the same thing harshly. How the child receives it depends on the vibration that you're sending the child. Now, parents try to con the child because they will not raise their voice. They'll keep their voice very gentle, but the vibration inside is, you're misbehaving and you can't have this thing. Even though they haven't raised their voice, they're not being harsh. But you have to remember, the child is not listening to the words. The child is responding to the vibration. The child can hear your vibration of lack of love. Hi Rochelle, hi Tamika, so good to see you. Hi Heather, good to see you guys. So you see, yes Heather, like animals, children are very perceptive. We are all born psychic. We are all born with the ability to channel, and then we lose those abilities because it's not what is reinforced. What is not reinforced is forgotten. Right? What do we reinforce for children? Well, this is the right way to behave, and if you don't behave this way, then there will be repercussions. That's what we reinforce for children, right? So it is, it has become, it should not be. It should not be that you need a degree in parenting in order to become a parent. It should not be. But it's become so complicated, and it's become complicated because we have made it complicated. So I'm actually really happy that we are doing this portion of the Vortex book, because I actually learned a lot from Abraham about parenting, which resulted in my writing my own book about parenting, which if you're interested, you can go and check it out. It's called Is This Apple From My Tree? And the reason I called the book that was because there's this saying, the apple never falls far from the tree. And my thing was, well, sometimes you look at your children and you say, are you really mine? Like, how can you behave this way? Where did you come from? And so the whole idea behind that title was that children should not have to be like you. The apple can fall really far from the tree, and that should be totally okay. Your love for that child should not have anything to do whether or not the child resembles you in any way, shape, or form. Because, I mean, I'm just talking from my own experience as a child. I was way out there. I was not from the tree. Like, if you saw me, you would think that I had nothing to do with that tree. So that's why the book is called Is This Apple From My Tree? I had a lot of fun writing it. My daughter asked me to write the book. And it's really special to me because it was written after she and I went through a stage of mending our fences. So I went through some difficulties with her when she was a child, and then she came around and she said, well, you have to write this book about parenting. So she's the one who got me to write the book. All right, let's come back here. I love this. Yes?
So this book is for parents?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This book Is This Apple From My Tree?
Because I've seen it always with the little kids, and I thought, well, this is like a story for kids or something like that.
No,
I want to get it for my son. That would be appropriate, right?
It is a book for parents and grandparents, not for children.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Jerry says, don't many of our disempowering thoughts begin in childhood? In other words, how much influence do adults have on the way children begin to think? And are children doomed to continue the patterns of resistant thoughts that they learned from their parents? And Abraham says, doomed is a very strong word. Anyone who is giving their attention to anything begins to offer a similar vibration. And you know what Abraham is saying here is, and it's relevant to everything in our lives, not just parenting. It's the same concept. It's law of attraction. Whatever you give attention to becomes bigger in your life, becomes more in your life, and your vibration starts replicating, mimicking the vibration of that behavior. So the problem with parents is that parents ask the child to mimic them. See how I'm doing this? Do it like this. And even when the parent gives the child this confirmation that they should copy the parent in so many ways. They ask the child to copy the way they put their plates away, copy the way they put their shoes on, copy the way they put their coats on. So that becomes an ongoing theme. Look at me and do what I do. And then the child starts paying a lot of attention to what the parent is doing. Even when the parent does not want the child to pay attention, the child is paying attention. Because once you've told the child, always watch what I do and do what I do, then the child is always paying attention. Because when we say that, when our little ones are really little, our love for them is really pure because we have not have a fight with them yet. But that starts changing. That's why it's called the terrible twos. Because once a child starts showing their own opinion, their own perspective, then we start saying, no, your perspective is not right. It's my perspective that's right. So that's when the parent withdraws. Parents withdraw their love and become conditional. Once the parent withdraws love and becomes conditional, the relationship changes. So the trick for the parent is not to allow that relationship to change. To keep love constant even as they tell the child what they do not want. To tell the child that I don't want this behavior from you, not because your behavior is wrong, but because I don't want it. See how there's a difference in that. Please don't be noisy because it's hurting me. Doesn't mean that your being noisy is wrong. It's just that it's hurting me just now. I don't have the ability to deal with your noise just now. Does not mean that you are never permitted to be noisy, or that when you are noisy, you are inappropriate. That's what it means to keep love constant. To give the child the feedback that you're fine. I'm not asking you to stop because there's something wrong with you or what you're doing is wrong. I'm asking you to stop because I'm in a place where I can't handle it. So if you stopped, it would be really helpful. You're helping me. It's not that you're wrong. But oftentimes parents have not gone to the school of Abraham and don't know it. I certainly did not know it when my daughter came along. She's older. By the time my son came along, I knew. But when my daughter came along, I did not know. So it is conditional. I have told you to stop. You're not listening. That makes you a very bad child. Stop it. And when you do it that way, you have withdrawn love. Now, when you say it that way, you might even say it without shouting and screaming, but there is no love in it. The vibration of love is a vibration, and children have really strong antennas. The vibration of love isn't there, and that's what they're You can ask a child to stand on their heads 10 times with love, and they will do it for you. But the minute you push the child away, now you've created a problem for the child. But hang in there, because that doesn't mean that you should now put this child in cotton wool and not let them experience the world. Because if you always try to change your behavior to accommodate the child, then you're basically what we call mollycoddling. You are protecting the child so much that the child will never learn how to deal with contrast. So I'm not saying don't shout at your child. By all means, shout at your child, but make it about you and not about the child. I'm going to shout at you because I am really upset. But I want you to know that it's not because you're bad. It's because I don't know how to handle my emotions just now. And so I'm going to shout at you. And after that, I'm going to go into my room and calm myself down. And then I'll come back out. But most parents don't say that because they feel as if they're losing face, losing respect by doing so. But it's actually the reverse. You don't lose respect by being vulnerable and being who you are. In fact, you're showing the child that you're human. So funny story. Okay, guys, here's the thing. I used to have really... I'm trying to search for a word that is kind to me. I used to have really big anger issues. Yes, I did. I used to have really massive anger issues. But all of that changed because of meeting Abraham. And I'll tell you a little story where the change was obvious. Like it was like a 180-degree turnaround. When I realized this material that I'm sharing with you just now, I realized that my son and my daughter, when I'm angry, that they pull away. They pull away. And so I realized that that's affecting the level of love in our relationship with each other. So then one day when my son was like, I think he was maybe 3 years old, like he was verbal. He was 3 years old. I think he was 3 years old, around that age group. One day I explained to him, I said, you know, when mommy gets upset, it has nothing to do with you. I love you so much. You are so absolutely precious. When I get upset and I have an anger tantrum, it's because I'm not paying attention to how I should be behaving. It has nothing to do with you. So I said to him, I said, next time when mommy gets upset and goes off completely, here's what I want you to do. I want you to say to yourself, it's not about me. It's about mommy. It's not about me. Can you do that? And he said yes. Few days later, I blew my top, exploded. I was in the habit of doing that in those days. I blew my top completely, and I still remember where he was standing and what he was wearing. And he was on the last step of the staircase coming down, and I shouted at him, and he started crying. And he's going like this, and then he says, it's not about me, it's about you. And he stopped me right in my tracks. You know, like I just froze for a few seconds, and then I started laughing. My anger just melted away in that moment. It was just gone. And he's still crying, and now I'm hugging him, and, you know, I'm saying, oh my God, thank you so much for remembering to do that. And that's when my anger issues just like that went away. And that little event led to my children now learning how to handle mom. And even if my voice changes just a little bit, they still do that. They look at me, they point their finger, and they start laughing. They just laugh at me when I get angry. Because now they understand, they've learned this thing that when I'm angry, it has nothing to do with them. But that's how quickly you can change things. It changed like that in one instance, one little event, and everything changed in our household. And now they just laugh at me, and then what am I going to do? Can I be angry when they laugh? I mean, I do have a choice. I could be even angrier, but no, it doesn't happen that way. And so you see, that's the thing. The trick in that was that I did not give my son that knowledge when I was angry. Because if I had tried to teach him to do that while I was angry, he would not have learned it. I taught him to do that at a time when we were just having a normal, loving conversation. And I told him to use it, and he used it. So that's the difference that it makes, to equip your children with the right tools. So because I gave it to him with love, he was not afraid to use it. Had I been angry when I told him, okay, I'm angry and now I want you to do this, he would not have heard it and he would not have used it. But he felt completely safe using it because I gave it to him when I was in a good place. And I will never forget that day. I'm sure he doesn't remember. I've actually told the kids that story once or twice. But they don't remember how things changed. They don't remember. I remember. It's carved in my memory. Irreplaceably carved. Okay, let's keep going from there. So, Abraham says, when you keep telling your children, pay attention to me. I'm still on page 62. The second paragraph there. Third line, anyone who is giving their attention to anything begins to offer a similar vibration. Well, it's because parents keep telling their child, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. I'm in charge. Do as I do. Do what I tell you to do. So the child is paying attention. And whatever you pay attention to is what you get. Even if you don't want it. So that's how children start vibrating the way their parents are vibrating. Because if you're paying attention to something, whether you want it or not, you are getting it. This is what I teach in the Heart and Mind Alignment program, is that intention and attention are two different things. For example, intention, child does not intend to start learning to be angry like you are or worried like you are. That's not the intention of the child, because the child can perceive that that's a negative vibration you're sending out. But because the child is paying attention to your worry, therefore the child is becoming stressed. And then the child tries to find a reason for why they are feeling negative. And most children make it about themselves instead of making it about the parent. I was bad. I was not good enough. That's why this happened. And that was the trick that I did for my son, was I turned that around. I explained it to him and I turned it around. And I told him that it was not about him, it was about me. And he remembered that because it felt good to him. That's why he remembered it, because it felt true to him. He was young enough that I had not yet had the opportunity to program him out of it. So he got it and he used it. And that's the trick. Because if I had not, then he would have paid attention to my anger and then he would have absorbed it. So this is why children absorb the parents' stress, even though the stress is about work or a relationship or something that's going on in the parent's life. But the children non-verbally absorb the stress because they're paying attention to it. Not because they intend it, but simply because they're paying attention to it. Why do they pay attention? Because they care. They care about their parents, so they pay attention. Children can tell if your voice is off by this much, your child can tell. And then they'll start asking, what's wrong? What's wrong? Because they are picking up on it. They know it, even though you haven't said it. And then they ask you what's wrong. And if you don't give them a satisfactory explanation of what's wrong, then their mind starts churning around, trying to find a reason for what's wrong. And they'll come up with whatever stories in their head. And that's how children learn how to worry. Okay?
Can you say that part again? About making the story up?
So, if a child comes to you, if you're upset and the child senses it, the child will come and say, what's wrong? I know my children have done it. I know I have done it to my parents. What's wrong? I can feel you're off. What's wrong? And the parent says, oh, nothing. Nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. Then you put a smile on your face and you think you're fooling the child. You're not fooling the child. The child will walk away and say, something's wrong here. She's not telling me. Maybe it's about me. Maybe I've upset her. Maybe my father said something. Maybe my other sibling has said something. Why is my mother upset? So the child goes in their head and starts thinking of all sorts of reasons why mother is upset, or whoever. Someone is upset. They try to figure it out. And in that process of trying to figure it out, a lot of times, if a child has not been taught to become a duck or is not naturally a duck, maybe they're a sponge. Sponge is someone who is absorbing. Duck is someone who doesn't absorb anything. So if a child is a sponge, they absorb it, and generally speaking, they make it about themselves. And then they go down the emotional scale and they don't know how to come back up because they haven't been taught or whatever. Then they just stay there. And if the parent is low vibing, and every day the child is picking up this low vibe because the child is paying attention to the parent, even though the child themselves is not thinking worrisome thoughts, just because they are paying attention to the parent, they're absorbing that. Because whatever you pay attention to is what you get. That is law of attraction. So children, unless we teach them that they should not pay attention, that parents' emotions have nothing to do with you, unless we teach them that, then they don't know. The problem is, children when they are born, they know that. But because we ask them to pay attention to us, then they forget it. Rochelle is saying that juxtaposition, that moment, shape-shifting moment is precious and so poignant. Yes, it is. It is, Rochelle. I will never forget it. Rochelle is saying, I never developed the ability to check a mother's mood. Never. As it was never safe for me even since birth and coming out of the birth canal into the world. DMing you. Okay, sure. I look forward to your DM. All right. So, yeah, some children intuitively have that and they don't pay attention to the parent. You know, parents upset, but the child's over there playing, completely happy, oblivious to what's going on. That's natural. The child who comes and clings to the parents and puts their arm around the parents and says, I'm going to kiss and hug you until I can make you feel better, that's the sponge. And we actually pride ourselves sometimes by teaching children that they should feel for others' feelings. Let's all get together and feel bad for that person who is sick. Right? So, don't do that. Don't do that. It's not helpful. All right. So, this is a really important paragraph, so I'm going to read it because my summarization of it will not give you what I want you to get out of it. For example, when an adult disapproves of the behavior of a child and speaks his condemnation of the child, as the child observes the adult's disapproval, a vibration occurs within the child that corresponds with that disapproval. So the child doesn't feel good. But at the same time, the source within is offering appreciation and approval of the child. So now there is a discord because there are two different vibrations going on inside the child. And does the child know what to do with these two? You're shaking your head, Liz, but some children are very wise and they do know what to do. And some children don't. And that's the problem. Some children do and some don't. But if the parent clearly makes this statement of saying, don't pay attention to me when I'm not feeling good. Only pay attention to me when I am feeling good. Because when I'm not feeling good, that's not your problem. It's up to me to fix it, not your job. And nothing to do with you. That's the thing we need to teach our parents. Our children. A lot of parents don't do that, and the child can forget, because the child is being taught at school, on TV, sometimes by family, that they should care about how other people feel. Right? And we should care, but not that much. We should care, but not that much. It's that not that much part that's missing. Yes, care. It's good to want to help, but not to the extent that you feel bad about it. If mother is feeling bad, you can bring her a glass of water, you can get her slippers, you can give her a hug and a kiss, and then leave her alone. You are not responsible for fixing it for her. Right? I remember if my mother was crying, I was like a puppy sitting at her feet. I wouldn't move. That was not the right behavior. My mother loved it, of course, because she said, oh, my daughter cares so much. But for the daughter, that was not the right thing to do. Because I couldn't make sense of what was going on inside her and why she was upset. But I was so concerned. I care, and I care too much. I want to fix it for you, Mommy. Just tell me how I can fix it for you and I'll do it. That's what's going on inside the child. Just tell me, how can I fix this for you? Because I like you so much better when you're happy. Right? So we just need to show our children how to draw the line between your emotions and the child's own emotions, and not to take on yours. That's the key. So when the source inside the child is loving the child and the child is not loving itself, that's that discord that Abraham is talking about. What that means is that the child has gone down the emotional scale, and now there's a separation between what the child's inner being is telling the child and what the child is telling itself. That distance and how big that is and how much momentum that has is now the problem. Right? So when negative emotion is present, it always indicates discord between the perspective of source and the perspective of you in your physical body. Yesterday I was trying to explain this to someone. That when you feel bad doesn't mean that the thing you're looking at is bad for you. It just means that you're looking at it in a way that your inner being is not looking at it. That's all. It's a difference in perspective. So I was talking to this girl yesterday, and she was telling me how she had an opportunity come to her that she should respond to, but every time she looked at it, she didn't feel good about it. So the question was, this thing must be bad for me, that's why I'm not feeling good about it. No, sweetheart. That's not the reason why you're not feeling good about it. The reason you're not feeling good about it is because the way you're looking at it is different from the way your inner being is looking at it. That's why there's discord inside you. That misinterpretation of why we feel bad, a lot of people make this mistake when they actually discover Abraham's teachings. Most people do not understand this little difference. The thing that you feel bad about is not bad for you. Your way of looking at it is wrong. Because the source inside you is looking at it differently. And so that's what Abraham is trying to explain here, is that when negative emotion is present, it always indicates discord between the perspective of source and the perspective of you in your physical body. So let's read this again. For example, when an adult disapproves of the behavior of a child and speaks his condemnation of the child, as the child observes the adult's disapproval, a vibration occurs within the child that corresponds with that disapproval, meaning that the child has come down to the same vibration as the parent. So now the child is feeling bad. But at the same time, the source within is offering appreciation and approval of the child. Because no matter the situation, source never withdraws loves or offers condemnation. Ever. So the discord between the active vibration influenced by the physical adult's disapproval and the active vibration of the source, love of source, causes discord in the child, which feels like negative emotion. The child is looking at it differently from its inner being. That's all. It is of value to note here that no negative emotion is present until opposing vibrations have actually occurred. So if the child never paid attention to your behavior, then the child would never feel bad. And that's why we all want to be ducks, not just want that for our children. We all want to be ducks. If you never notice that something is wrong, and that happens to me often where I don't notice things, then other people say, oh, did you not notice that person said this and it was inappropriate for this reason? And I'm like, no, I never heard it. Like I never heard it. I didn't hear it that way. And one of the results of this understanding was that I started, this is a day of disclosure, so I'll tell you another thing. I was the expert in the entire world for reading between the lines. You're saying that, but I'm going to read between the lines and figure out what you really mean by that. Well, guess what? That's not being a duck. So when I learned from Abraham and I analyzed my own behavior, I let that go. And I decided I'm just going to take things at face value. I'm going to start taking things at face value. I'm not going to read between the lines, but because when you read between the lines, you're going negative in all sorts of different directions, trying to figure out what to read between the lines. And that energy spent is just not worth it. So I stopped doing that. And that is basically what Abraham is talking about over here. Until, if you never notice that there's something wrong, then you never vibrate as if something is wrong. You see? And that's really important. Because, one second Lakshmi, because if you never notice that something is wrong, then you never go down the emotional scale. Mom's having a bad day? All right, let her have a bad day. I'm going to go watch TV. When she's done having a bad day, she'll come and find me. That's what that means. Lakshmi, what did you want to say?
Yeah, so to learn how to do, like you said that you don't notice it at all, but like in the beginning, because you were doing that in the past, if you do notice, so what's the best way to do that? Just ignore it, or how do you overcome that tendency?
You overcome that tendency by being forgiving. You overcome that tendency by being forgiving, which means, oh, that person forgot to say please and thank you. That's okay. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Just because I think everyone should say please and thank you doesn't mean that. Just because they are not saying please and thank you does not make them a bad person. You see, that's not how I was raised. My mother was very particular about manners. And if people were not saying please and thank you, they had a shortcoming. Right? So you notice those things. It's like this one girl that I was coaching one time. You know what she would notice when she went out for a date? She would notice whether the guy that she was with was opening and closing doors for her and pulling out chairs. Because that meant a lot to her. That was her upbringing. She noticed it. So I would say to her, sweetheart, like, how important is that versus that person really understanding you? Are you willing to let that go? Because, I mean, if you're not willing to let that go, that's fine. It's your decision. But I'm just saying, is that a molehill that you're turning into a mountain? He is perfect, but he doesn't open the door for me. Which means his grooming and upbringing are lacking in some way that's going to become a huge problem in the future. Really? What's more important? I mean, if it is that important, sure. Like, I'm not going to say that's wrong, because I would much rather not have you go and get into a relationship that's going to upset you on a daily basis. So if that is really that important to you, say no now. Don't take it any further, because you don't have the capacity. You're going to notice that every single day. For the rest of your life, it's going to drive you nuts. So don't do it. But those are the compromises people make. I can't stand the fact that he doesn't do this, but you know, everything else is okay, so I'm going to go forward. Really? Don't do that. Minimize the thing that gives you angst. Minimize it. Take that mountain and make it into a molehill. And now it won't bother you anymore. Now go forward. But if you can't do that, then don't go forward, because it's going to hurt you every single day. Another person that I was coaching wanted this guy that she was seeing to text her and call her more often than he was. And I was like, if you can't get over that, he does not do so, then let him go. But she dragged it out for a whole year. And it was the same thing every time. He doesn't call me. Yes, I know he doesn't call you, but do you think he cares about you? Yes, he cares about me, but he doesn't call me. Okay, then stop. Or let it go. You can't have it both ways. What's more important? Right? So that's what we need to teach ourselves as well as our children. What is more important? So that's where opposing vibrations start happening. I like this, but I don't like this. That's an opposing vibration. Right? I love my mother, but she was just mad at me. Opposing vibration. So if you don't do anything to close this gap, then the gap just starts becoming bigger and bigger and bigger until there's an explosion. Hi, Navera. Good to see you. Okay. Unless you focus upon their disapproval long enough to activate it in your own vibration, you will not feel the discord. My father was like that. He would not pay attention. You know, there would be things happening and my mother would say, didn't you see that? Didn't you hear that? That person just said that? Didn't you get it? And he would be like, no. And she would get upset with him and say, why weren't you paying attention? And he would be like, it's not important. So unless you notice it, then it can't make you upset. So I had two parents, one who would not notice it, therefore he never got upset, and one who would notice every tiny little thing and be stressed all the time. But at that point in time, I didn't understand this material, and my mother always vocally said, he's wrong, he should be paying attention. And my father was such a sweetheart, he never ever, he could take on anyone else except my mother. He never said that she was wrong, ever. She was always right. So when she said that, he never said anything in return. And I assumed that she was right. In reality, it was he who was right. Okay. Most parents are so certain that they are right that they work quite hard at staying focused upon what they believe is wrong behavior until they do manage to influence enough attention to their object of disapproval that the discord begins within the child. You're not listening, I'm telling you. I'm right, listen. You're not listening. Pay attention. I just told you this is how you have to do it. You're still doing it your way. Why can't you do it my way? And the parent does not let go until the child starts conforming. And that's how the children get trained out of their guidance and trained into their parents' guidance. So if the child never noticed that there was something wrong, that would be a very good thing. And like my grandparents had this strategy where if they were discussing a problem, they would never discuss it in front of the kids. And I remember my mother having this conversation now. Like we are kids, we are playing in the background, they think we are not listening, but I was listening. That's what I mean. Children are always observing. I overheard my parents having this discussion between the two of them that said we should be open and honest with our children, and if we are discussing problems, we should just discuss them in front of the kids. The kids should be part of it. And there's no right or wrong way of doing this. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you offer too much protection and you don't bring it to the kids, then your children are living in a very protected environment where they are really not learning what the world is like. So you don't want to do that to them, but when you do share, remember to draw the line where you teach them, I care, but not that much. This is an issue, but I'm not going to get so upset about it that it brings me down the emotional scale. Consider problems from the top of the emotional scale, and then you can arrive at the solution. That was the problem in the way my parents did things. It was fantastic for them, of them, to have open discussions with me and my brother. So we discussed everything openly, whether it was politics or the family budget. It was all out in the open. We knew everything that was going on in the household. But we were never taught to create an emotional distance between the problem and us. We were never taught not to take the problem on and start worrying about it. In fact, we were taught the reverse. Here's a problem, now you worry about it. We are all going to worry about it as a family. That was the part that was missing. But you know what? Amazing, because it created so much contrast in my life that here I am. My brother and I went in different directions. So I remember as a child, I used to get upset at him because he didn't get upset. He drew the emotional line. And he never used to get upset. And I used to constantly be in there with my parents, upset at whatever was going on, stressed because they were stressed. And my brother was oblivious to all the problems. And then somewhere we did this turnaround thing where I went that way, learned to be a duck, and he became a sponge. So now I see him as a sponge and I just say, not my problem. I care, but not that much. Not that much. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. I trust you can figure it out. So the beautiful thing that Abraham is saying on page 63, the second paragraph, notice how reluctant your children are, especially in the beginning, to admit their wrongdoing to you. It is their natural instinct to continue to feel good about themselves even when you are finding flaws or misbehavior. So this is when children don't want to say sorry. I remember I never wanted to say sorry. They don't want to say sorry because they really are not sorry. So that's what Abraham is talking about over here. Notice how reluctant your children are, especially in the beginning, to admit their wrongdoing to you. Because they don't, like if something breaks, children are more abundant thinking. So it broke, go get another one. Or something happened, you know, they have that abundant mentality and philosophy, which grown-ups don't. Oh my God, you broke that thing. I'm so upset now, right? Or something like, I'm using that as an example, but something like that. So we start training the child out of that abundant mentality. So just remember, your source, no matter how extreme the situation, will never withdraw its love and appreciation from you. While quite often your physical parent who has lost conscious connection with source seemingly demands your attention to what he deems your failure or misconduct. All right. So Abraham says that it's okay that that happens. Don't worry that that happens. Don't worry if it has already happened, because your guidance is always calling you. Your child's guidance is always calling the child. And whenever you catch a glimpse of it, it calls you. And when it calls you, you and your child have a decision to make. You can go. It's just a decision. That's it. I'm done with the perspective of my parent. I'm going to start using my own perspective. That's it. Had enough. So you can always make that switch. Anyone can always make that switch, because our guidance never stops calling us. Source never gives up on us. And this is why children sometimes who grow up in the midst of really massive contrast in their lives make one decision and they change everything. And they turn out to be nothing like what you would expect from whatever family situation they're coming out of. Look at Dr. Wayne Dyer. Oh my God, I absolutely love and adore that man. And look at where he came from. His beginnings. He was in foster care. I think there were 6 of them, siblings. And he and his brother, one brother, were placed together in a foster home. And the others, they were all split up. And his mother had drug and alcohol issues, and then he developed drug and alcohol issues. But then look at what he did. He flipped completely, and look at who he became. How the family that you are born in and the childhood that you have is not determinant of what you will become. It's a decision. It's a simple switch that anyone, we all have access if we return to our source, if we return to our guidance. So that's what this is about. Abraham says it's always calling you, and when you catch a glimpse, you can make that decision to go. So in the end, the last paragraph there, they're saying, whenever others attempt to guide or influence your behavior by the offering of approval or disapproval, as you try to please them, you are diminishing your awareness of your own guidance system. If we were parents standing in your physical shoes, our dominant intent regarding our children would be to make them aware of their own guidance system and to encourage them to utilize it always. Because giving up the last line of that paragraph, giving up your guidance system is a sacrifice that we would never ask of anyone. So that's the main thing that we need to teach our children, is to utilize their own guidance system, to make their own decisions and to make those decisions from a place of love. Because what we have to teach our children, and I admit it is not the easiest thing to do in the way that Abraham teaches us to behave, is to teach our children that it is not about right and wrong. It is about love or the absence of love. That he took that away from me. It was my turn to play with it. That's when you're coming from a point of view of what is right and what is wrong. And what we want to teach children is to come from a place of love. Come from a place of love. Is it okay if your brother plays with it for a little longer? Can you still love your brother even though he's taking more time just now to play with this toy that you had decided you were going to share? Come from a place of love and not push back. That's mainly what we need to teach our children. And then we don't need to teach them anything else. We don't need to teach them anything else, because then they are equipped with their own guidance system and they know exactly what to do. I was having a fun conversation with my son a couple of nights ago. He came and I have this nice leather couch that Stella usually occupies, but he occupied it that night in my study, and we were just talking, and he was telling me about these really interesting people that he had met over the last couple of days, and he was telling me his thoughts about these people, and he was so amused. He was having fun telling me about all these people that he had met. And I was sitting there observing him, and then he said something. He said, people are so much fun. People are so much fun. And I was like, oh, I love that you just said that. I'm so happy that you just said that. You just made my day. But that's what we have to teach children, is that, just observe people and don't let it permeate under your skin. You don't have to take it on. Just let it go. Let it fall off. Just have fun. So he is so interested in people that he strikes up conversations with complete strangers just like that. So he's telling me, he's very much into physical fitness. So he says to me, he was sitting in the sauna and there was this person, and this person seemed really crazy because he was talking to himself. And then he says, so I just sat there and I listened to him, and then I started talking to him. And he's telling me the story of this man. And I'm just sitting there, oh my God, you're so amazing, It's just his perspective. He always comes to these things that he observes. He's so observant. He observes things. And then it's so interesting to me for me to observe his thinking process. Because he always finds something really interesting about these people. And then he tells me how he started talking to this person in the sauna, and then this person gave him information on 1, 2, and 3 things that now he's got really interested in, and now he's going to go and research this stuff. Because it's so interesting. And I'm like, yes, just keep having fun. It's all good. So, that was fun. And obviously we will continue next Thursday. What I do want to, take the opportunity to let everyone here know that if you are interested in parenting, a couple of things are happening. I'm just now working on another parenting book and a parenting course. And I am starting a program for parents, and the information for that is going to come out in the next couple of days before the end of April. And so if you are interested, let me know, because then I'll keep you on my radar and I'll make sure that you get that information. All right, everybody, have a super fantastic day. And for those who are watching on Facebook, remember tomorrow is day 40 of the 40-day Law of Attraction workout, and we start a new 40-day cycle on Monday. It is exciting. All right, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Love you a lot. Take care, and I will see you. Well, most of you, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
This is one of my favorite ones.
Your favorite session?
Just the meeting was a great session. And
Awesome.
When you were telling the story about getting angry and your kids pointing at you and laughing, I was crying, laughing so hard.
Well, we as a family, we've come a long way, so it doesn't happen a whole lot anymore. But we did go through this one. Well, my children laugh at me anyway. It's so much fun. You know, sometimes I'll say something and they'll just they look at each other and then they start laughing. And I love it, because then I start laughing as well. Awesome, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. All right, Rochelle, Heather, good to see you there. On Nevera, and who else is there? Awesome. So excited, Heather, to have you in the new cycle. Wonderful. Take care, my dear. And I'll see everyone who is on Facebook. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.